Hey everyone, it's Helen from S&B Deal Hunter. Today we have Sam Stolt with us, an entrepreneur who has acquired multiple e-commerce businesses as well as a landscaping business that he's bought and sold. So very excited to hear Sam's story today. Sam, it's great to have you on.
Thank you. Great to see you, Helen. Thank you for the opportunity and for reaching out. I know it took a little while for me to get back into the DMs, but I'm looking forward to this. And your story is very interesting with all your experience too.
Thank you so much. Yeah, very excited to have you. Sam, I guess tell us about your background first. How did you get into acquisitions? What were you doing before? And sort of how are you, what brought you here today?
I've always wanted to make a lot of money, and I was actually homeschooled my whole life. So I thought, like, I'll study money. So I'm like, finance and accounting is what I did in undergrad and in grad school, and then got a CFA because I thought that if I study money, that's how I would make money. But in reality, that's not how it works in real life. But I didn't know the path, so I would just kept doing one job after another job after another job. And then I was working for the government as a contractor doing their finance and accounting. And I'd show up at 7 and I'd be done with all my work by like 9 o'clock. And I was like, this is crazy. And so I was like, oh, can I have Helen's job? And you pay me 50% of what she makes. I'll do her whole entire job plus my job. And you save money. And the government's like, no. So I was in contact with somebody in Florida who owned a landscaping business, and he wanted to grow the business. So I actually worked out a deal with him where I purchased 50% of the landscaping business from him. That was in mid 2017, I think, and then we like tripled the business, just a couple 100,000 by the end of the year, and then continued to grow it into 2018. Um, but then I was like, this is not what I want to do. I live in Florida. So if you're not familiar, it's like ridiculously hot during the summer. And I was not just like operating the team to do it, I was also in the field
Wow.
doing it. I was like, I'm going to get out of this. And I went back into uh, finance. I was at a bank in Boston. And so I held the ownership of that, but my partner ran the business and took it down, which is my fault because I didn't put in processes or systems to continue the growth after I left. Uh, but then I started my own business about a month before COVID happened, e-commerce. And through building the network of that, I had people that I knew, and I knew a guy who wanted to get out of his e-commerce business, which was the same as mine. Like I would buy inventory for him if I was low on inventory, or sometimes I would sell him inventory and things like that. And he wanted to get out. So I was like, hey, what if I just buy your business? And I was able to buy his business and do seller financing on it with a little bit down. And I was able to like pay that off out of the profit of the business within 6 months or something like that. And it's really, these e-commerce businesses that we're in are like net 50 to 60% margins, like after all, not just gross, but like net margins are over 50%. I bought another one in the same space, probably in late August. Um, then I bought another one in December, and I bought another one. Actually, I bought two in December. One of them, you can interrupt me at any point, or we can
Yeah,
touch.
I was gonna say, I guess let's pause for a second. What e-commerce business is netting 50-60% margins? Can you share?
So, any area that's in like a slightly gray area or a nuance, like a new market, there's always more opportunity there because there's less players in that market. So the market we're in, have you ever heard of research compounds?
No, I don't think so.
Have you heard of peptides?
Yeah, yeah.
So these are peptides, but they can only legally be sold for research purposes. So these are all in that space, selling for research purposes, and the margins are just absolutely insane, which is great for cash flow. And then you get economies of scale too as you continue to add on the additional businesses. And say, if I buy your business, there's things that I'll learn that you're doing excellently that I'm not doing. that then I can take those learnings and apply them across the other brands as well.
So you started by, starting your own business in the space, and then you bought a competitor out basically, or someone that was, selling something similar. Are these branded products? Are you like reselling products? What does that look like?
So how the kind of flow works is we will purchase products. It used to be we were purchasing from China. Now we purchase from the US. There's a company here we buy from. So how the process works is we'll order it, we'll get the product tested. So it comes in because they're peptides, which if people are not familiar with them, you actually inject our nasal or capsule, but they're only for research purposes. So once we get a product in, we'll take that and send it to a third-party lab, and they do a purity analysis and or a quantity analysis of the compound to say it is what it is. So if I'm buying from Helen, I want to know that if you're selling me XYZ, that it actually is XYZ with a high purity level. And if you're selling me 100 milligrams of this, then I want to know it's actually 100 milligrams. And then they'll be branded, and then they'll start to that will sell. But we also actually this is kind of like a side business related to this, which does manufacturing. So we're just in the very early stages to start manufacturing, and this is my first like foray into manufacturing. But when you get into like starting light manufacturing, the margins, we're able to cut our costs somewhere between 50 to 80% per unit, which means that instead of a 50% net margin, it's going to be closer to like a 60 to 65% net margin. It's crazy.
Yeah, it makes total sense because you're cutting out that co-manufacturer, that co-packer middleman, right? And they're taking their margin. So no, that makes a lot of sense. No, that's super interesting. What does your team look like? How are you able to handle acquiring all these businesses? So yeah, I mean, I don't know how many businesses has it been in the past year, right? Multiple. Um, would you say that in the e-commerce space, it's easier to kind of integrate on the back end? Or why do you think you're so well set up to integrate all these businesses so quickly?
Well, you shared with me that you were growing your e-commerce business, and I think that when you mentioned bringing in a CEO and all that probably sets you up way better than how I am set up. I wouldn't say that I'm set up ideally, but I guess if you would ask any entrepreneur, they would probably say the same thing.
Yeah, no such thing.
We have about 25 people on the team. It's ecom, so we have almost everybody's in the Philippines, and I hired a manager that's domestic, so he works with the team on a daily basis. And given that we're in like this gray space, it's more challenging to run ads because Google and Meta don't want you to run ads or they'll close your accounts. So
It's
we
like
have
being in CBD or having a CBD brand. You can't advertise.
100%. Correct. Which I do think that would be a very interesting roll up here in Florida in that space. So have you ever heard of Kava or Kratom?
Yeah,
Because
I
those are
have.
all kind of in that same space. And within a mile or 2 miles of my house, there's probably 15 independent smoke shops like Delta 8, Delta 9, Kava, Kratom, and doing a roll up in that space. Because if you have independent like physical location and there's no like e-commerce, but then if you take two and you brand them the same so they can both push towards one store on the internet, like an e-commerce store, I think that's a very interesting play for e-commerce.
Interesting. Interesting. So I mean, you're in this gray space, which means you can't advertise. So how are you getting the word out? Like, how are customers finding out about you guys?
So we have, I set it up so that you have a recruiter or like an affiliate manager. So they go through and they find affiliates and bring them on board. So I set up the comp so they're getting like incentive for the speed of how quickly they bring somebody on, but also the quality of the person they're bringing on. And then there's a little bit of competition because there's 4 brands in this space. So they'll like compete against each other, right? For which then you get to reward the top person. But we have around 2,200 affiliates across the brands, and we're bringing those on. So they will market through, say, their email list. Some of them will actually run ads, and then I don't have to worry about my account getting shut down because their account will get shut down. And it's also, when you do ads, demographics, geographics, psychographics, right? And you have different parts of all those ones, and then you could create, 100 or 700 different avatars. I didn't recognize this at first, but you can actually create those same type of avatars through affiliates. Because if you were an affiliate, your audience is different than my audience. So by bringing on affiliates, you get this like almost organic avatar creation across the board, and you can target it to specific, like look for, say, doctors, or look for personal trainers, or look for whatever this type of avatar is to get them in based upon these are the types of customers that generally purchase. And then if did you guys have affiliates with your e-commerce?
We did, but it definitely wasn't the focus. And I'm very impressed that you've been able to build out such a strong affiliate network. I guess it's one of those things where it's like when you don't have to, you don't focus on it. But when that's your only channel because you can't advertise anywhere else, that's, you got to
So,
focus on it.
so you did ads, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So how do ads work? You put money forward, you put money forward, you put money forward, you put money forward, and then you're like, oh, I got it, clicked, right? And then you can just pour gas on that once you figure that out. Affiliates, which I didn't know this at the beginning and didn't even think about it, flips the cash flow. So instead of cash out, cash out, cash out, cash in, it's cash in, cash in, cash in, cash out. So if you think about this on, say, a monthly basis, maybe I think we did about 175,000 in affiliate sales last month. So we get cash coming in, 175,000. And then with affiliates, you do not have to, you can structure however you want. We have ours so that they can get paid out on a weekly basis. However, maybe 10% of them get paid out on a weekly basis, which means that we get a free line of credit at a bare minimum on 10% of the 175 that came in for a week, right? So a free line of credit, 10%, $17,000 free line of credit. But then there's a good portion of that 175 that will ask to be paid out once a month, which, let's say that's 50%, right? So you have $80,000 free line of credit that I don't have to pay interest on. I already collected the cash versus Facebook ads or like Google ads. I collect the cash. There's also a decent portion of those people that will be like, I'll wait to get paid out till I get to $100 or $500. So they might sit on their earnings for 3 months, 5 months, and not get paid out. So I get a free line of credit for 3 months or 5 months. And some people, which I didn't get this at all until afterwards, never ask to be paid out. They sign up as an affiliate, they do some promoting, and then they just never ask to be paid out. So it'd be like, Helen, can you sell my products? And you'd be like, yeah, I'll sell the products. Okay, cool. You earned $1,000. Okay, cool. You can keep that in perpetuity. And I just never have to pay people out. So the cash flow versus, and I've not run as successfully long term where I've been able to figure it out in this industry. So I can't contrast it to say it's better or worse because you got to 30 million and we're not at 30 million yet, right? So I don't know, but I just know that from a cash flow basis, it's like, this is awesome.
I mean, it's great because in e-commerce you have so much inventory that you have to invest in. So that's great for your cash conversion cycle. I guess going back to, buying these businesses, what's interesting is, with the businesses you're buying in this space, you obviously can't go and get an SBA loan and finance it. And it seems like the first deal you did, it was seller finance. How have you financed the subsequent deals? That are, I guess, all in sort of this space, right? Or you're basically just buying out all your competitors. Yeah, how have you sort of structured those?
Every single one has been seller finance. Because if you're in this industry, you know what it's like being in this industry, and you know that getting bank financing is a challenge, or like a big challenge. So the first, so on top of this, like, so that there's bank financing, traditional financing is challenging to do. in investors, which I have not raised money, so I can't like talk to more than just like my perception of it. But investors in a gray area are going to require like more protections for themselves and or higher returns or larger amounts of equity in this space. So you get compressed like multiples. I mean, so the business, the first one I bought for 135,000 was doing maybe about 400,000. He was doing about $30,000 a month, 30 to 35,000. So a little bit under $400,000 a year with over 50% margins. And I bought it for 135,000 with what? So I gave about 35,000 cash. The remainder was spread out over, if it was 12 months, it was 135. If it was 6 months, it was 120, I think it was. And if it was 18 months that I used to pay him off, then it was 165. So I did it where there's no interest on there, but the valuation price would change depending on how quickly I could pay him off. Because I knew I have my other businesses, I have rentals, so I don't need the cash. So I was just going to dump it into paying him off faster so I could get a cheaper price on there. And
That's
then
incredible. Wait, can I pause really quick? Why would these people sell at these multiples? Why wouldn't they just keep running the businesses? Maybe that's what my first obvious question, right?
great question, because you're like, oh man, this is stupid cash flow. Like this is crazy. Well, you know how you ran your businesses at times, and you know how it's like a pain in the butt, right? It can be stressful for some people, and there's always like you're just kind of like a firefighter perpetually. So now take that and put it into a gray area, and you multiply that times 100. Like last 10 months ago, 12 months ago, I get a letter, like in a manila type envelope, like from a legal right standpoint. And it is from Eli Lilly. Do you know who Eli Lilly is?
No, I don't think
It's
so.
it's basically big
Pharmaceutical
pharma,
company.
correct?
Yeah.
Because we are selling a peptide where most peptides are like naturally in your body. So this peptide you can't patent because it's natural. But what they did is they took the peptide and they changed it slightly and added something to it. So now it's a drug, and then they can sell it for 10 or 100x the price. So like the drug, the active ingredient, meaning the thing that actually works in the drug, is something that's naturally in your body already that you cannot patent legally. So I get a letter from Eli Lilly, but it's basically complaining to the U.S. International Trade Commission about this. And like, I'm like, it shows up on Fox and then it shows up on Reuters. And I'm like, this is right. Like, I'm not doing that. I'm not trying to do anything about complaining that we're using their trade. But it was just like, we have listed as in like, this is a synonym for this, the active ingredient. Synonym of this is this drug name, right? And so going back to the multiples, like why don't people stay in this industry? Why do people want to get out of this industry? Because shit like that happens. And if you're married, you're your husband, you have a kid, or you have other things going on, and you don't fully understand all the nuances of what you're doing, people get scared. So you don't have to pay, like I'm paying less than 1x, right? Like on that, say if it was $180,000 in profit, I get 135 for it, and I got seller financing on it, right? So it's great, like that's why.
It's
Because
kind of like the one man's trash is another man's treasure. It's like totally this is exactly what that situation is.
correct, and you have to be thick-skinned to be able to deal with those types of things. Because if you weren't familiar with that, and then you get this scary letter, it's like 90-page thing that gets dropped off on legalese, trying to understand what is going on, and that's scary to some people. But that type of thing happens on a regular basis. I don't know. You probably had merchant accounts shut down, right?
We weren't in a gray space, but like I totally have acquaintances and friends where that's happened. I mean, it's so common in e-commerce, right? Where it's just like your account's shut down for a variety of reasons. Anything can happen at any given time. And I think especially, I know in like the CBD space, it's the same thing, right? It's like can't advertise, you try, you get shut down. You're just like constantly in this like it's horrible. But I get
So
it. Like if you're good at dealing with it and you have a
and now
process.
think about in this space, that's not only merchant accounts, like I don't even have credit card processing. Like we don't even have credit card processing. We have to take all these we would be substantially bigger if we actually had credit card processing. I'm going like, out of the country to try to get credit card processing set up here and those types of things, which these are all just like headaches you have to deal with as being an owner of this. And you hired like a CEO of this. I've acquired these and I'm still like operating them at the same time. Even though I might not be doing a lot of the day-to-day stuff, I'm still working on things on these are all scary. You have literally bank accounts being shut down. Like I've had probably 3 or 4 bank accounts being not just like a merchant account, like bank accounts being shut down, and then
Wow.
they'll hold your money for 2 months, and you're like, well, that's my operating money. Like, how do I pay people and buy inventory? So it's like scary to
That's
people
wild.
because yes, that's why you get such crazy like.
Multiples. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And how are you finding these deals? Like there's so many that you've acquired in such a short period of time. How are you finding them? Like, are you reaching out to these owners? They know you. Is everyone kind of familiar with everyone else in the space, or how does that work?
Yeah, basically a little bit of that. You know people in the acquiring business space, right? You're aware of different names in the space and all that kind of same type of idea. Even if I don't necessarily have a relationship with them, they might know one of the brands that I have or something. And then when you have a team of people that is recruiting affiliates, their job is to perpetually reach out, DM, cold new people on a regular basis. So they get leads of some sort sometimes, and they will pass them along to customer service, which then I'll see, or sometimes they'll send them directly to me. And those types of things happen where I'll get like a connection through this. Like the second company that I purchased, which I made a big mistake that you read about in every single business buying book, where it had concentrated revenue from one source, and I didn't even think about it. I knew not to do that, and it's still going to be profit. It's still like profitable because you have 50% margins, but they were doing like $20,000 a month, and I paid 80 grand for them, but it's gone down by 50%. So it's
Wow.
$10,000, but it's still $5,000 of profit. But it's like it's 10 grand, right? Like I mean, you know what I mean? So now I'm rebuilding that whole process. We're back into the works, and now we're actually growing it. But all the you know parts of like I did seller financing on that too, and do the same types of things where like you have to deal with the banking, you have to deal with credit card processing, you have to deal with all these different things, even to the point where you have uh, domain providers like GoDaddy. And I wasn't aware of that until this space. They will actually close your hosting and steal your domain. Even though you've purchased for the domain, you're not like on a payment plan or anything. You've purchased the domain. They will, hey, nope, that's all.
Wild. I did
Yeah.
not know that was even possible, but that's good to know. PSA to everyone listening. That is crazy. So how many of these brands have you acquired at this point in the same space?
Five.
And they're
Five.
all separate brands. You're kind of running them, you're centralizing sort of marketing and the affiliate recruitment and things like that,
And
basically.
customer service and fulfillment and procurement. Yes. So that
But
we have,
just different brands, different websites, effectively.
yes,
Back.
exactly. But you can consolidate purchasing inventory. So
Yep.
I get economies of scale there, which I'm able to drop the unit cost for everything that I'm selling. And when you purchase something, we send it out for testing, right? So testing adds a marginal amount to every single product that's tested. So when you increase the quantity, then I'm spreading that fixed cost over more, right? Versus just one brand. Now I'm spreading that over more brands as well. And my thought process is like when I was doing the one and dealing with all the individual like risks that I told you about, or just headaches, I guess you could call them. I was like, how can I reduce this risk? And that was kind of like well, if I start buying other brands, then if this one gets shut down and I have this headache here and I can't grow this one as quickly, I'll have the second one, which presumably won't get shut down at the same time. So I'm like, let me get a portfolio of these. So if one gets hammered in a negative way, whether it's email service providers getting shut down, our bank accounts get shut down, our processing getting shut down, like the domain getting stolen, we can stay afloat with the other side of things. So that was my thought process. I'm like, how do I reduce my own risk? Well, if I buy additional brands, it'll reduce my risk.
Yeah, no, it's like you've priced in some of these issues that are just bound to happen. How is that? I mean, I guess my earlier question was gonna be, why not just start other brands? What's your perspective on that? Like, why not start? You started the first one and then you went and bought a couple more. Why not just start new brands? What's your reasoning behind that?
Because going from 0 to 1 is so much more challenging than going from 1 to 2. And I don't want to buy a company in right now. We're looking at we're probably buying another company in December. And I don't want to buy a company that's doing less than $50,000 in revenue, which is probably relatively small for most people. Um, just because there's zero processes in place, there's zero systems in place. And the only reason we do $50,000 for this type of business is because we can just plug it into our email marketing, our procurement, our fulfillment, our customer service, our website design, all that kind of stuff. We have all that and we can plug that in. But in an independent, like the next company we're purchasing is actually outside of this space completely. So then it reduces our risk, but I want the revenues to be over 100,000 per month because they need to have processes or systems in place because those it's like all the relationships you need, um, all the headaches that you run into to go from 0 to 1. You don't have to deal with any of those. It's so much lower risk.
And when you think about these additional acquisitions you're going to make, well, you know this like gray space and how to operate in these types of environments very well. Is your thought, hey, I'm going to go into other industries that have the same problem, or are you just branching beyond into other industries that in e-commerce?
I think that given the track record in the gray space, you learn how to market things in a way that other companies don't do because they just see, oh, I'll just do ads, that's way easier. And they don't have to think creatively or resourcefully to do that. So we've also acquired media assets, say like Facebook groups, and you use those for marketing. So you can buy Facebook groups and use it for marketing or sell advertising in the Facebook group. And these are things that are not applied to traditional type of businesses. So I want to take those learnings, especially with the affiliate program stuff, and apply that to another e-commerce business and just test my skill, test to see like what we can do on this front. Like it's a physical, this new one we're going to open up will reduce the portfolio risk, but it's also going to test the skill of like all this like, guerrilla marketing type stuff, see how effective it is on this front over here, because they're not running ads either, and I'll see how good I am, I guess.
No, it's very cool. It's so much harder to have to figure things out without ads when it's like, your hands are tied behind your back. What can you do? Um,
Yeah.
that's super
How did
impressive.
you, how did you approach how did you approach ads? Like, did
For
you
us, it's very straightforward for us because, not when you're not in a gray space, you just run ads like everyone else. It's and you just find your customers, you find the messaging that works, and you keep pouring gas on the fire, right? So it's I think what you said, it's kind of like on easy mode versus in your situation, it's definitely on hard mode. But I think there are a lot of learnings or like things that like a brand that maybe doesn't have to do all these things wouldn't learn. Like you have that knowledge, which I think is especially powerful, especially in today's age where ads are super expensive, they're getting more expensive, in this like post iOS whatever number we are at world. um I think that's a super super valuable skill set. I'm curious.
we go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I'm curious. Tell me more about acquiring these Facebook groups. I think that's not. I know a couple of people who've done that, but no one I brought onto the podcast. Tell us about that. What was it to grow the business? Did you just tell us just more about that?
So yeah, it's very unique. I haven't found anybody else who's done it yet. Um, so when I started the brand, the way I was marketing was in Facebook groups and just getting in there and helping people. So I was in this one Facebook group because I didn't know you could even buy Facebook groups. Technically, according to their TOS, like you can't. But I was in this group marketing and I saw all these other brands that were doing the same exact thing in the same group I was in. So I reached out to the guy, some guy in Brazil. He's never in the group ever. So I reached out to him. I was like, hey, have you ever thought about selling this group? No response. 2 months later, I reached out again, basically the same message, no response. And then about a month later, I was like, hey, I'll buy your group for $1,000. Instantly, he responded. We just did it over PayPal. He added me as an administrator, did a test with like $1, then put through the rest of it. He left the group, and now I am the group. And to get back the cash as quickly as possible, I reached out to the companies in the group and I said, hey, do you want to remain in this group? If you do, there's an advertising spot where you get the banner ad and the pinned post, and you get added as a moderator. So I sold advertising for like 2 months or 3 months to just get my money back as quickly as possible. And then I started to do this on a regular basis. We have 15 Facebook groups now that we use to market and sell and, get
Brilliant.
affiliates and that kind of thing. And I think it's such a big opportunity. So like the S&B space, right? One of the reasons it's cool is because there's not a lot of competition. Plus, if you like business, it's just fun, right? But there's not as much competition, and there's like lower prices on things, not in terms of the absolute value, but in terms of multiples, right? So you can get really good returns on things. So think of applying that to like a Facebook group. So whatever business somebody's in, you can go find Facebook groups that are similar or related to that industry. And a lot of people who start Facebook groups start them because they like, coffee mugs. And they're like, this one has the thing on the bottom, which then sticks to the table, right? And they're not making any money from it. So they're willing to sell you the Facebook group for nothing. I've gotten seller financing on a group that has like 600,000 people in it. So he's like sold it to me as seller financing for this group. So as soon as I get it, I start marketing in it, and I use the income from the marketing to pay for the group. So that and then you just can repeat the process or take any one of these groups to then build another group that is a different segmented list of people in these things. And then
No, it's brilliant. It's super smart and super creative, and I love how creative you've had to, get but and I have no doubt you'll have success in other industries or other people may just not be doing that. Um,
it's
can you
fun. Like
can you tell us some other industries you're excited about getting into then, that are out of maybe like the peptide space?
um so there's I like crypto. So there's that's you cannot really buy in companies in that space, but I do invest into the crypto space. Um, I invest into real estate, and there you can also I've done creative finance in the real estate deals, so purchasing them that way. But this new space is actually the power washing space that we're buying into, and it's not actually doing the power washing; it's selling the picks to the miners that are doing it, right? So they sell parts and whatnot to them. One which I want to find an operator for is the like Delta 8, Delta 9, and like CBD, Tava, Kratom space. I live in Florida, and there are independent shops like everywhere. And I think that there's a massive opportunity to do a roll up of individual stores. So one of the things that I don't know why physical locations don't do this. When I was younger, I used to work a lot in retail, and when there wasn't customers in there, I would just be talking to my colleagues and not doing anything. What we've been doing for different affiliates is you can go through and create this same Instagram profile. So I'll give you the logo. You can put your like link up there, and we can give you posts. I don't care if you post the same exact thing I'm posting because it's additional content and additional reach out there. So from a physical store location, and this is what we're going to do at the power washing place. All the employees who are working in there create individual accounts, and anytime they're down, they have to be either on like a Facebook page reaching out to people or an Instagram page reaching out to people that they will have individual affiliate links that then will drive to like the master site, like the e-commerce site, because there was many hours where I was sitting around in retail not doing anything, and every retail location has this. So why not utilize that? They can get commissions above and beyond what they're doing, and it drives more traffic and awareness to the website. So I think about applying that to like the CBD store type of thing. And if you have 3 or 4 people working in there a day, where most of the time there's nobody in there, and if you have 4 or 5 or 10 or 20 stores all pushing to one e-commerce site, I don't know if anybody else is doing this, but I feel like that would be a way to market where you can use your resources without additional cash to then drive higher ROI. If that makes sense.
No, 100%. I mean, I think it's really smart. Let us know how it goes. I'll have to follow up with you. I'm very curious. One other question for me is earlier you brought up that, most of your team is in the Philippines. You have about 25 people. How did what are they doing? Where'd you find them? I think a lot of people are interested in offshoring. Obviously improves your margins. Tell us more about that.
Can I ask you a question? Did you guys do a lot abroad? Like, was your team abroad or was it on domestic?
Yeah, last business I was actively operating in, I had hired probably over 3.5 years, maybe over 30 folks abroad, mostly Philippines.
So yeah, it's you can get amazing quality people at a fraction of the price. And the average monthly income in the Philippines is like $250 a month. So if you're paying somebody $1,000 a month and or $500, but then you give them different types of incentives so they can get to $1,500 a month if they actually operate at a high level. That's what I've been able to do over this time period. So not only do we have a really high margin business with very positive cash flows, but then you have the labor is extremely low on it. So I've broken it down to kind of like the sales type of team. We have email, website, and then the recruiters or affiliate manager piece of thing, and how they're all working together, putting different incentives in place so that they actually do work together. Because at this point, 2 years ago, it was me and a couple other people, where today the thing that's going to grow the businesses the fastest is working on the team and like allowing the team to grow more, right? Because I have to be able to give incentives. I have to be able to train and lead the team to get them to the next level, which then allows the whole enterprise to grow. And basically, most of them will work on individual brands, unless it's say procurement or email marketing. That person's covering all the different brands and things along those lines.
So
So
what roles are you still onshore, like are still onshoring at this point, or that you have someone actually in the US?
fulfillment, because somebody has to send stuff out. The operations manager is domestic, and that's about it. That's
Okay, impressive. And how are you spoke about incentives, which I think is super important here. How are you incentivizing folks, especially ones that are revenue generating overseas?
it's it's such a important part that I feel like so many businesses don't. There's opportunity to get better at the incentive piece of things and just being very clear on it. So with the affiliate marketing thing, because we've been doing it for so long, you have the affiliate program in and of itself has 3 or 4 different types of incentives. So you have the affiliates that come on board. They have different levels and different things that they can get from, like, hey, you bring in this much in sales, then you get this, or we're doing a contest and you get this bonus in addition to your commissions, or you get free products or things like that. So you have the actual affiliates. You have the recruiters, individual, and then as a team. So the individual recruiter brings on, they get like paid for, I think, of speed and quality, right? Like if I'm like, how we want do this thing as fast as possible, then you have garbage quality, versus like, I just want the highest quality thing, then nothing ever gets done. So I want both of those pieces there. So we pay a little bit for every single person that comes on, but you get a multiple of this here if you're bringing on quality people. And that's across 4 different brands. So then each one of these, there's a team bonus. So if you're the best in terms of total sales, you get a larger, kicker on there. If you have the highest percentage, right? Because some brands are way bigger than other brands, then that way the smallest companies can still get a bonus. It's a much smaller bonus piece of things. And then we're doing like a monthly one that's based upon the total program sales, where it's an absolute dollar amount. So like you have the biggest brand, you get a 5% growth as big as like the other company won their whole entire program, but then also percentage growth in terms of total sales on that. So it's
That's no, that's super smart. And how are you finding them? Are you recruiting them yourself? Are you using an intermediary? What does that look like?
well, how did you? I'm curious. How did you get yours?
Yeah, a bunch of different ways. I'm curious to hear, but for us, and even now, it's we either use like a recruiter or a middleman, or we'll go look on our own on some of these like marketplaces like an Upwork or online jobs.ph or those places. But I think it's just a function of like um time and how much you have, right? um and what you're willing to invest. So it's like a time versus money trade-off. But curious how you're thinking, how you're dealing with this since you've had so much success.
Primarily with the online jobs.ph. Um, Before I was doing all the interviewing, but that platform is undervalued. Like I think another cool play would be to buy him out and make that whole entire site better, because it could be so valuable to so many different businesses, but I don't think it's marketed right. I don't know how you feel, but owning that marketplace for that specific market and then copying and pasting that for Colombia or India, right? There may already be out there that I'm just unaware of. But the same approach, online jobs.ph, put a job posting up there, um, do a bunch of interviews. At this point, I don't have to do the interviews or this type of thing, but we have one guy in India who does a really good job. And, it's sometimes when you talk about hiring people abroad and you're like, well, this person here, I have to pay 5 grand, and this person over here, I'm paying $700. People sometimes think of that as you're taking advantage of people. But at the same time, many people on the team are like, oh, hey, I'm able to move into this new house because I'm working with you. Or, hey, I've been able to buy a car and I've never had a car and I'm 35 years old. And things are like, I'm able to do this thing and I wasn't able to do that thing because they're actually making more money than they would by doing other things. So we'd like to continue to expand that team. And then this power washing business that we're bringing on, I think that I can, give certain people on the team marginally more, and then just take on customer service and website design and email marketing piece for this new business that we're acquiring. And that'll be up to speed very quickly. They already know how I operate and how the business runs in terms of like working with me. So now they just have to learn the semantics of this new style of business. And it won't be a brand new person that has to get up to speed and a brand new cost to the business. It's just, hey, Helen, you have this work. Okay, we're going to add a smidge more work and you get this other piece to it. So I think that we can expand our team. Like we're 25-ish people, but I think we can expand that and start to use that for new acquisitions as well.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess, when you are going on an online jobs.ph, how are you vetting people? You mentioned that you have someone now doing it, but early on, I'm sure you were doing yourself. Like what's your guys' process for finding attractive talent? Because I think a lot more people these days are trying to go through an intermediary to kind of vet people out for them, which is obviously expensive. So, if someone were to do it themselves, what do you recommend?
I would say talk to somebody who's better at it than me. I don't know how do you like. I made plenty of bad hires, but I've also found really great people. I don't think I have a great process for doing that, in all honesty. Like, I don't know, do you feel like,
It's very tough. I kind of agree. There's as much as you can do in like making sure they're serious, doing the like, hey, reply whatever rock star, the first sentence, if you actually read this whole thing, you put that at like the bottom of your job post, like basic things like that. But I think ultimately you interview people, and there just like is a certain amount of churn that you almost just have to build in. And I don't know if I have a great process either, but you ultimately find some really strong talent from this bigger pool that you kind of have to like you just have to keep doing it. Like you're gonna see some churn.
One thing that I think it was helpful. I don't have like tracking to show for sure. However, you know, when you think about like email marketing and the avatar you're writing to, the segment of the list that you're writing to, so you're using specific creative and specific copy to write to that avatar. So taking a little bit of that and thinking about what type of person do we want to apply for the job, I think that's been really helpful because I didn't do that originally. And now when we're writing the copy, for the job posting, trying to think about like how does this person talk? How does this person think? What type of language can we use in the copy? Because I don't think personally, I don't think a lot of companies do that, that to then try to like pull that person in. Like we want somebody who's going to be growth oriented. So how do we, and like not just in the business, but we want you to actually be growing in your life, right? And take care of yourself, right? Both your relationships and your physical health, because I just want to work around people that are healthy and like good relationships with people, right? So trying to incorporate language in there that specifically draws in those candidates. That's the only thing I can think of in terms of maybe a tip that could be helpful for people.
Yeah, I think it's even like your voice that you're writing in, right? And things like that. I mean, we've also tried that. I don't know if we've had a lot of success either way, but you keep us posted as you hire more folks and grow your team. I know we're at time, Sam, but I guess final question for you was just any final words of wisdom for folks out there who are maybe like going in and trying to buy their first business, maybe where you were, years ago, working that job for the government, and where like people who are in that space right now, what do you have to say to them?
I think it's easier than people realize. Like you have this idea in your head of this monster that you have to like it's the next level in the video game that you have to beat, and it's like hard. I think of it as like when you're younger and you just broke your mom's favorite thing, and then you got to tell your mom, and you're like scared to death to tell your mom, and you tell your mom, she's like, "Oh, fine, honey, no worries," right? It's kind of like that, and you also don't have to have the money. Like I don't know if you've done deals, but like I bought one in December of 2023 for $0 out of pocket. So I didn't pay anything for the business, and it's doing last month. It did like $45,000 gross, which means about $25,000 of profit out of the business that I didn't pay any of my own dollars in. So if somebody like wants to get into this pay space, and then you're like, oh, you need a PSA, or like a purchase and sale, and you need like all this crazy due diligence and all this other stuff. Yes, these are all like prudent things. Yes, these are all valuable things. You got to reduce your risk depending on how you're structuring it. It's an asset or equity deal. All these things matter. But like, if you don't trust Helen, like if I'm going to buy Helen's business and I don't trust Helen, and I think she's just not being honest with me in some way, or the numbers are not, don't do it. But there's so many different ways you can do it that make it really simple and allow you to go from what you're doing to like multiples of your income, like that. And it's not as challenging as people think.
That's great advice, Sam. And I think, you've been able to be so creative about this. I've loved chatting with you, and I've certainly learned a lot. I know others will feel the same as well.
Totally.
If someone wants to reach out, Sam, after listening to this interview, where can they find you?
Um, Probably Twitter or Instagram. And if you just search for my name, Sam Stolt, on the platform, it should be there. On Instagram, it's a lot of like fitness related stuff. Um, and on Twitter, it's just underscore Sam underscore A underscore Stolt is the handle on Twitter. I appreciate you having me on. This has been fun. Hopefully, anybody who's been listening to this actually enjoys the conversation we had.
No, this has been great. I've really, really enjoyed it. Sam, sorry went over. Thank you again for your time. You're very generous. Eager to hear where these future upcoming ventures, take you, and excited to just follow your journey and your progress.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thanks again.